The mahogany conference table gleamed under the morning light as I arranged the meeting materials with practiced precision. 24 leather portfolios, each containing the quarterly reports I'd helped prepare, though none of the executives would ever know that. To them, I was just Maria Chin, CEO David Morrison's efficient but unremarkable executive assistant. "Coffee, Maria?" Vice President Roberts called out, not bothering to look up from his phone. His tone carried that familiar note of dismissal, the one that had helped keep my secret safe for 5 years. "Right away, Mr. Roberts," I replied, hiding my amusement. If he ever bothered to actually read the company's financial statements, the ones I've been quietly restructuring since 2019, he might have noticed something interesting about Global Innovation's remarkable turnaround. As I poured his coffee, black, no sugar, just like his perspective on corporate leadership, I caught Sarah from marketing rolling her eyes. "God, how does she do it?" she whispered to her colleague, "playing servant to these guys day after day. If only they knew what David and I were laughing about during our closed-door meetings." I just finished setting up when David walked in, his presence commanding immediate attention as always. At 65, he carried himself with the confidence of someone who'd built a technology empire from the ground up. Our eyes met briefly, and I caught his subtle wink. Tomorrow would be interesting. "Good morning, everyone," David began, taking his seat at the head of the table. "Let's review the key 4 numbers." I took my usual spot in the corner, laptop ready, the very picture of a dutiful secretary. Over the next 2 hours, I watched the executive team discuss strategies I'd helped develop, debate decisions I'd helped make, and take credit for successes I'd helped engineer, all while asking me to refresh their coffee. "These international expansion numbers are impressive," Roberts commented, flipping through the report. "David, your instincts on the Asian market were spot on." David merely smiled. He knew, as I did, that the Asian market strategy had been my brainchild, built on my years of experience in international finance before I'd adopted this careful disguise. The truth was both simple and complex. 5 years ago, when David had approached me about his succession plan, we both understood the challenge. Global Innovation's board was old school, resistant to change, particularly when it came to leadership. A young woman of Asian descent, they'd never accept it, not without proof. So we crafted a plan. I would join the company as his executive assistant, a position that gave me access to every aspect of operations while keeping me invisible to those who judge by appearances. Meanwhile, I would actually be running significant portions of the company, testing my strategies, proving my worth through results rather than rhetoric. "Maria, could you pull up the projection slides?" David's voice brought me back to the present. As I navigated to the relevant presentation, I remembered our conversation from 5 years ago. "It's underhanded," I protested, sitting in David's office after hours. "Won't they feel deceived?" "What's underhanded is how they dismiss you without even giving you a chance," he'd replied, his expression serious. "I've built this company on innovation, on seeing potential where others see nothing. You're the future of global innovations, Maria. Sometimes the only way to break through a glass ceiling is to carefully shatter it from an unexpected angle." The meeting continued with its usual parade of ego and assumption. Roberts dominated the conversation, mansplaining basic business concepts to the few female executives present. Anderson from sales kept referring to his golf games with board members. Through it all, I took notes, fetched coffee, and smiled politely. "These new tech initiatives," Roberts was saying, "they're a bit too aggressive. We should stick to our traditional markets." I kept my face neutral, even as I seethed inside. The aggressive tech initiatives were carefully calculated moves I designed to position us ahead of emerging market trends. The data supporting them was solid, the risk analysis thorough. But Roberts and his old boys club couldn't see past their fear of change. "Let's table that discussion for now," David said smoothly, giving me another subtle glance. "We'll address the tech strategy at tomorrow's board meeting." Ah yes, tomorrow's board meeting. The thought made my heart race a little. After the executives filed out, I stayed behind to clean up, just as everyone expected. Roberts paused at the door. "Maria, could you have those market reports on my desk by morning? And maybe freshen up the graphics, make them prettier." He smiled condescendingly. "You're so good with those little presentation details." "Of course, Mr. Roberts," I replied cheerfully. "I'll take care of it." Once he left, David closed the door and burst out laughing. The graphics need to be prettier. If he only knew you wrote the entire analysis. I allowed myself to laugh too, dropping the subservient act. It's almost over, David. Having second thoughts about tomorrow? He shook his head, sitting on the edge of the conference table. Not a single one. You've more than proven yourself. The company's value has doubled since you started making the real decisions. Our tech division, which Roberts wants to shrink, has grown 300% under your strategy. The board may be old school, but they understand numbers. I began gathering the portfolios, thinking about the morning ahead. They're going to be shocked. They're going to be angry, David corrected. Then embarrassed. Then, when they review your actual track record, they're going to be very, very quiet. He smiled. That's when you'll have them. That evening, I worked late in my small office adjacent to David's. To anyone passing by, I looked like the dedicated secretary, putting in extra hours to support her boss. In reality, I was finalizing the presentation that would change everything. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister Lisa, the only family member who knew the truth. Ready for tomorrow, sis? I smiled, typing back, ready as I'll ever be. Looking out over the city lights, I thought about my journey. The MBA from Stanford. The years in international banking. The careful planning with David. The subtle manipulation of those who underestimated me. Tomorrow, everything would change. My phone buzzed again. Roberts, of course. Maria, sorry, but could you also update the font in those reports? Something more modern? Thanks, dear. I grinned, saving the final version of my CEO's succession presentation. Of course, Mr. Roberts, I typed back. Anything else? That's all for now, sweetheart. You're a lifesaver. Setting down my phone, I opened my desk drawer and pulled out my real business cards. The ones David had ordered months ago. Maria Chen, Chief Executive Officer, Global Innovations, Incorporated. Tomorrow would definitely be interesting. The morning of the board meeting dawned clear and bright. I arrived at 6 a.m., dressed not in my usual modest attire, but in a tailored channel suit I'd been saving for this day. The security guard did a double take but said nothing as I swiped my badge. My small office looked different this morning. The carefully curated image of a dedicated secretary, the family photos, the motivational calendar, the little pot of succulents, seemed like props in a play that was about to end. In a way, they were. Robert strode in at 8:15, coffee cup extended. Maria, just the person I need. Could you? He stopped, finally noticing my attire. Oh, got a job interview? I smiled, not taking the cup. No, Mr. Roberts. I already have the job I want. Before he could respond, David's voice came over the intercom. Maria, could you join us in the boardroom? And bring all your files. The emphasis wasn't lost on me. 5 years of secret strategic planning, hidden in plain sight in my secretary's filing cabinet. I gathered the documents and my laptop, leaving Roberts standing there with his coffee cup still extended. The boardroom was full when I entered. All 15 board members, the executive team, and key shareholders. David stood at the head of the table, commanding as ever in his perfectly tailored suit. Good morning, everyone, he began. As you know, I've called this special meeting to announce my retirement and name my successor. The room tensed. Robert straightened his tie. Anderson from sales leaned forward eagerly. Each of them thought they were the chosen one. For the past 5 years, David continued, I've been preparing this company for a new kind of leadership. Someone who could guide us into the future while honoring our innovative spirit. Someone who has already proven their extraordinary capability. Roberts was practically preening. I took my usual seat in the corner, opening my laptop. This person, David said, has already been running significant portions of global innovations. Our Asian market expansion, their strategy, our 300% growth in the tech division, their vision, our doubled company value, their financial acumen. The board members were nodding appreciatively, each mentally claiming credit for these successes. Maria, David said suddenly, would you please pull up the succession presentation? I stood smoothly, taking my place at the head of the table beside David. Of course. But first, let me properly introduce myself. I placed my real business card in front of each board member. I'm Maria Chen, Stanford MBA, former VP at Goldman Sachs, And for the past 5 years, I've been the shadow CEO of Global Innovations. The silence was absolute. Robert's face went from red to white to red again. Anderson's mouth hung open. What is this? Roberts finally sputtered. Some kind of joke? Actually, I said, pulling up the first slide, it's a lesson in unconscious bias and missed opportunity. Let me show you exactly what you've been missing while you were asking me to fetch coffee. Over the next hour, I methodically laid out my track record. Every major success the company had achieved in the past 5 years, traced back to my strategies, my decisions, my leadership. All documented, all verifiable. The Asian market expansion you praised this morning, Mr. Roberts. Here's my original proposal, dated 3 years ago. The aggressive tech initiatives you wanted to scale back. Here are the projection models I built, showing exactly why they're crucial for our future growth. With each revelation, the room grew quieter. Board members who barely acknowledged my existence were now studying me with intense interest. But you were just a secretary. Anderson protested weakly. No, David cut in. She was never just anything. You all simply chose to see what you expected to see. And in doing so, you proved exactly why this approach was necessary. I clicked to the final slide. A comprehensive 5-year plan for global innovation's future. This is where we're going next. A full digital transformation, expansion into emerging markets, and a revolutionary approach to sustainable tech development. I've already laid the groundwork. The only question is, are you ready to acknowledge who's been leading you there all along? The oldest board member, James Chen, no relation, leaned forward. The numbers, they're impressive. Very impressive. But why the deception? Why not simply apply for an executive position? Would you have given me a fair chance? I asked quietly. Look how you've treated the few female executives we have. Look how quickly you dismissed my ideas when they came through others. I needed you to judge my work on its merits alone. The room erupted in heated discussion. Some board members were outraged at being tricked. Others were studying my track record with growing admiration. A few looked embarrassed as they clearly recalled their own condescending behavior. David raised his hand for silence. The board will now vote on my successor. But before you do, consider this. Maria has already proven she can lead this company to extraordinary success. She did it while handicapped by secrecy and your prejudices. Imagine what she can do with your full support. The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. By a margin of 12-3, I was confirmed as the next CEO of Global Innovations. Roberts approached me afterward, his face a mask of poorly concealed anger. This is not over. The old boys network is exactly that, Mr. Roberts. Old. I smiled pleasantly. By the way, I'll need those market reports on my desk by morning. And don't worry about the fonts. Substance matters more than style. The next few weeks were intense. Some executives resigned rather than work under my leadership. Good riddance. Others approached me privately, apologizing for their past behavior and pledging their support. Most interesting were the ones who tried to rewrite history, claiming they'd always seen my potential. I made my first official speech as CEO to a packed auditorium. Global Innovations was founded on the principle that breakthrough success requires breakthrough thinking. Today, we're not just changing leadership, we're changing how we identify and nurture talent. No more assumptions. No more unconscious bias. No more overlooking brilliance because it doesn't fit our preconceptions. Looking out over the crowd, I spotted Lisa giving me a thumbs up from the back. David sat in the front row, beaming like a proud father. Even some board members were nodding along. To those who called me just a secretary, thank you. You taught me that true leadership isn't about titles or corner offices. It's about vision, determination, and the courage to prove yourself even when no one believes in you. That evening, as I sat in my new office, David's old one, I found a note he'd left in the desk. Maria, the best leaders don't just break glass ceilings. They help build new doors for others to walk through. You did this your way, with grace and brilliance. Now show them what you can do when you don't have to hide. Proud of you, David. I smiled, turning to my computer to work on my first official act as CEO. A new company-wide talent development program, specifically designed to identify and promote overlooked potential at all levels. Robert's resignation letter lay on my desk. On top of it sat my old world's best secretary mug. a gag gift from last year's office Christmas party. I decided to keep it displayed prominently on my desk, a reminder that sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about rising above while lifting others up. My phone buzzed, a message from Lisa. So does this mean no more coffee runs? I laughed, looking out over the city lights. No, I typed back. But from now on, everyone gets their own coffee. We're all too busy breaking barriers to waste time on power plays. After all, the best leaders don't need to demand respect. They earn it through results, and I had 5 years of results ready to share with the world.